Hello, Impact Asylum. My name's Fireguy, and welcome to another edition of Impact Asylum Radio. So thank you to all who stopped by last time when we did the first edition of Impact Asylum Radio. And for this episode, we will be doing a big review of 2017, covering all the roster changes that have happened in 2017. And we will also be covering the Best of 2017 awards that have happened on Impact Asylum. So joining me today, I have two guests. First off, he was with us last time on the Impact Asylum Radio. We have Impact Dude. Say hi, Impact Dude.
Hey, what's up, Fire Guy? How you doing today, bud?
Good, you?
Hanging in there again, as always. It's glad to be back on Impact Asylum Radio.
And we have a very special guest today, fellow Canadian along my side. He attended the majority of the Ottawa tapings when Impact was in Canada. He visits the website quite often, and it's James. So say hi, James.
Gentlemen, how we doing tonight? Pleasure to be here.
So what we're going to be doing today, obviously, first off, we have to do our plugs. So we have quite a bit to cover since our last edition of Impact Asylum Radio. So first off, we're gonna go a month in the past, I guess you could say, back to the booking challenge. So just to announce the winners for those who have missed it, it was a long 6-week tournament, and overall we can only have one winner, and it was Darren Simmons, who won the $20 Impact gift card, winning by very, very small margin over Raven Effect.
The slimmest of margins. I don't know how well known this is, Fire Guy, but literally, if I would have given Raven Effect one more point in one more spot on my card only throughout the 6 weeks, the results would have been different. That's how slim it was.
Yeah, it was really slim. 1 point
in one spot.
So,
awesome.
Yeah, so Raven Effect coming up second place. He does get a $10 Shop Impact card. But as well, there was also an extra little special gift as well for person with the best storyline. And this time it was FK9 who came in just barely over Darren Simmons, and he won the another $10 Shop Impact card as well. So, another big plug to do on the website. This is by far one of the best columns I've read on the website in recent months. It's just something I could really relate to based off the opinions that were said in it. It is Eddie Hirobi's column. Sorry if I butchered your name there. The Forgotten Element. So this came out basically New Year's Day 2018 on the website for those who haven't seen it. And he basically talks about his love for TNA and how his passion for wrestling throughout the years made him enjoy wrestling as a whole. And overall, I could just really, really connect to the majority of the points he mentioned in his column. And I'd be super excited to see more of his work get put up on the website. Also, another plug is the Mind of Talon. So obviously that's a staple of Impact Asylum. Talon always coming out with his columns as always. This time it's the Road to Redemption, different ways where Impact has changed to basically become, well, the ways they changed to get onto the Road to Redemption basically is the whole talk of this column. That was a big talk between me and you, Impact Dude, on last Impact Radio, how I didn't agree on the majority of his points. I'd say that I agree with the majority of these points, except at the part where he mentions where Twitch should be used over the Great Global Wrestling Network, and that's the only thing where I see as a bit wrong in my opinion. But overall, it's still a great article, and it really shows that Impact is really taking the steps to redemption, and they're taking it seriously with yet this reboot of sorts again with Don and Scott D'Amore coming in to take over Impact. Next, of course, is the heel cast. So, Impact dude, you can you're a host on the show. You know, you hosted it. You've been hosting for a long time that show. For those who don't know, just went up on the website. We have an exclusive interview with Congo Kong. The heel cast guys did an interview with Congo Kong, and if you want to talk more about it, Impact dude.
Oh, and that was a great interview. Wow. And actually, it was the man behind Congo Kong. It was Steven Wilson. And he told us all about his story, how he got into wrestling, why he got into wrestling, what the catalyst was, who gave him his first break. And he breaks down his career from the moment that he, as a young man, said, you know what, I want to do that in the ring, all the way until his big break with Impact. Man's getting up there in age for a wrestler, but he's just hitting his stride. He is a fantastic guy. I mean, when you talk to this man, you just like talking to a friend that you've had for 20 years. I mean, just the class act, and he tells it the way it is, and he doesn't pull punches. It was a fantastic interview.
All right. Yeah, so at the time of this being filmed, I haven't had time to check it out, but for sure I will check it out. And last but not least, we have my hot fire columns, my weekly reviews for Impact Wrestling. If you haven't checked them out, they come out weekly as Impact produces their TV show. And once in a while, as you guys see on the website, you'll get a Fire Guys predictions. I do that for all the TV pay-per-views and pay-per-view events that Impact produce. And this time, I predict the Genesis card and the winners and losers and the outcome of that show. And this is a really good tie-in since Genesis is the last show from the Ottawa tapings. It's the last show under, I wouldn't say the old backstage regime, since it's kind of the same people. It's still Anthem, but this is without Don and the Scott chapter, and how this is the end of the old session and now the beginning of 2018 after Genesis for Impact Wrestling. So this ties in now to our main point for this edition of Impact Asylum Radio. We will be covering the Best of 2017 awards. So the poll went up a few weeks, well, about a month ago now, I would say, where you could vote for tons of awards regarding the Impact roster and events that happen surrounding Impact Wrestling. And we are here to talk about them, see if we agree on them, disagree on the majority vote, and just overall go through it and see what we have to talk about. So first off, in our Best of 2017 awards, we have Breakout Star of the Year. So Impact Asylum voted, and Moose came out as the top name at 28%. So personally for me, I see the reasoning why Moose could be considered Breakout Star of the Year. He definitely was, I'd say, at the beginning of the year, the beginning of 2017, over the end of 2017, where he was just being beat down by American Top Team over and over again. So personally, I remember I did not vote for Moose. I voted for Eli Drake as Breakout Star of the Year, since before 2017, he was still really a no one in Impact. And even at the beginning of 2017, he wasn't that big of a player, really. He wasn't in the main event scene or anything. He was just, well, he was kind of in the main event scene, but not really at the same time. And he finally got his stride, won the big Gauntlet for Gold, and now he's been just running Impact, and it's been awesome. So, what's your thoughts on this, Impact dude?
I look at Eli Drake as a guy that really broke out last year, or 2016. so to speak. So I'm down with Moose. I think Moose is the right choice in this case. He's a guy that's really coming into his own. He's a huge man. He has the upside like there's no tomorrow. And here's a guy that needs to be world champion in 2018.
Yeah, for sure. And James, who do you think was the breakout star for 2017?
I can't disagree with either Moose or Eli Drake, but when I think of breakout star, I'm thinking of a guy projecting in the future. And when I was at the Ottawa tapings, one wrestler that really stood out for me was Ishimori, and some of the matches that he had on the cards that were presented in Ottawa. And I just thought he was technically flawless in the ring. With a little tinkering to his character, I think he could be a player down the road. So if I had to kind of go green in terms of a new guy who's just arrived but kind of hitting his stride, I'd go with Ishimori because I think there's some bright things for him in the future.
But yeah, for sure. To add to that, like you said, I was there as well for some of the tapings, and Ishimori, as we've seen, if you've been there at the tapings or we've seen it on TV, he's just been amazing in the X division thus far. Just the only reason why I didn't really consider him for breakout star of the year was since it really happened the very late end of 2017, and there's really he really has no character yet, minus he's from Japan and he's from Noah. So besides his really, really good wrestling skills, there wasn't much else to really make him better than the others on the roster. But this does tie into the next award, which was International Star of the Year. And Ishimori won this with 36% of the vote. So really, there wasn't really any other international stars that really appeared in Impact, were there? I know there was.
Go ahead, James. You hit this one first, bud.
So I liked Phantasma a lot from AAA. Again, he was another one.
The AAA guy, sorry, forgot them.
prominently showed at the Ottawa tapings. I thought he was underused for his skill set, but I can't disagree with Ishimori. I thought he was their go-to international guy. I would like to see a little more Phantasma, especially if they want to develop that AAA connection in 2018, because I think he has a lot of potential, and he's a huge star in Mexico, and they have to capitalize on that.
I think if you're looking international star and you include tag teams, it's just LAX, right? I mean, isn't that a no-brainer? Those guys were all over the place. They held the tag team division down, right? Kind of single-handedly. But honestly, if I'm going to give it to one guy, I'm going against everybody. I'm going with Garza Jr. I thought he was tremendously over. I thought he showed a lot of character. He had a world title shot at one point, right? I mean, the guy was everywhere. He put on great matches. He did exactly what they asked. So in my mind, I voted for Garza Jr. in this spot. I was a little surprised to see Ishimori get it. I think Ishimori is an amazing athlete. I think he's phenomenal in the X division, and I think this is his year in the X division. But as far as international was concerned, my vote went for Garza Jr.
But yeah, also to add to that, there's no real confirmation as if Impact forced Garza or if Garza did it on his own. But props to him to wrestle the tapings with that hurt shoulder there. I don't know what was exactly wrong with it, but it was all patched up, and he was protecting it lots in the ring. So props to him if he decided on his own to go out there. That's big props to him. Oh, you want to add something, James? Yeah.
Yeah, if you go back, just to add to what you're saying, if you go back to Bound for Glory and you watch that match, the X Division match, he essentially wrestles with one arm, and that was it. Yeah. And that takes some talent, that takes some skill, and takes some guts to do that, considering that he could have re-injured that arm or the shoulder, whatever it was injured. I had a lot of respect for him. For doing that, and he still put on a decent match. I think he even wrestled a couple matches at the Ottawa tapings, if my memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, he did wrestle afterwards,
and he didn't look out of place at all. So that speaks he's got a lot of talent there, and there's another guy they need to capitalize on as well.
But like dude was mentioning, LAX. So LAX were were winners of an award on Impact Asylum. They won Tag Team of 2017 at 77%. That's a huge landslide victory, but honestly, at the end of the day, you couldn't really give it to anyone else. They're the clear-cut winners in my mind. They just absolutely wrecked the whole tag division. LAX won. OV would be the runner-ups, but by a landslide. Just they wouldn't even be close to getting close to LAX. And maybe with Sami Callihan joining them, maybe they have more of a chance. But in my books, it's still LAX for 2017 and up to now in 2018 as well. So do you... Oh, sorry, James.
So with LAX, I agree. There's really nothing. Other teams, like some of those teams, only stuck around for one taping. If I can think of Veterans of War, if I can think of the Reno Scum. So even to factor them into consideration. But one person that needs to be included when I'm thinking of LAX is Konnan and his promo skills to get that tag team over. Because I remember when Konnan left the original LAX, the team, although they were still extremely talented, was nowhere near the charismatic force that they were with Konnan. So Konnan deserves a special MVP award for LAX, in my mind, for helping put that tag team over. And like you said, maybe with Sami Callihan jumping on board, he can be that mouthpiece for OVE that they so desperately needed. Because when they turned heel, to me, their characters changed, and I became automatically more invested in their characters. So I think that was a good move on Impact's part.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anybody else that we could we could even put in here? I mean, honestly, there's absolutely nobody that compares. I think James hit the nail on the head. Some of these teams, Reno Scum, Veterans of War, thank goodness, Veterans of War, right, were one and done, right? I'm sorry, they were terrible, you know, and it was literally they were brought in just to have a tag team. So it was a really bad year for tag teams, but LAX put on some fantastic matches. Like, I also completely agree on Konnan. Who would even know who, you know, Ortiz and Santana were without Konnan? We joked, you know, on the heel cast that it was like, you know, who's who between Santana and Ortiz, because they were two guys that were doing a great job wrestling in the ring, but they didn't do anything to stand out. It was probably halfway through the year or more before you looked at them and went, oh, that one's this one and that one's the other one. But they were over. And they were over because of Konnan, right? So no disrespect to those guys. They did their job, but Konnan put them over. And he deserves all the credit in the world for putting them over. But I was surprised it's only got 77% of the vote, to be honest with you. That number seems low.
Yeah, it should have been like...
100.
Yeah,
I mean, really?
much.
I mean, OVE didn't get over until they turned heel, and that was Sami Callihan. So
there was no competition there whatsoever. It's kind of sad there was no division, no tag team division at all in Impact for most of 2017. The Hardys left right at the start. Reno Scum got injured, so they could have still been a team up to this point in Impact if they wouldn't have got injured. Even though
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, buddy.
Okay, you can go ahead.
What's unfortunate is that they had that opportunity to pair Phantasm and El Tejano, and they did that for a bit. But to me, that could have been there could have been some money matches there, and they completely dropped the ball on that. And that over the course of the summer, they went a different direction. I know why they did it, but in order to get those the LAX even more over, a feud with Phantasm and El Tejano would have been interesting in my books.
Yeah, for sure. But tying into what Dude said, LAX wouldn't have been a thing if it wasn't for Konnan, and he won the comeback of the year in the awards for Impact Asylum at 36%. That this is another one that baffles my mind. I can't really think of any other comeback of the year that had such an impact, such as Konnan. I'm guessing behind the scenes you could name maybe someone like Jeff Jarrett that made an impact, of sorts, but someone that did a huge comeback that made an impact on television that we see on TV would definitely be Konnan. So it'd be cool to see what the other people voted for, because 36% seems like a really, really small number.
Yeah, I think I spoke previously about my respect for Konnan and what he brings to the table. And I think when he left the first time, way back when I was still watching with a lot of interest, I was pleasantly surprised to see him return this year and add so much to the product. And let's face it, at times a very stale product. But the highlights of the show were always Konnan and his speeches, somewhat borderline controversial in terms of what he said, but they're entertaining nonetheless. And he stays in character. And when he was on the air, his words would always captivate me and wanting to hear what he would say next. So, I mean, yeah, 36%, I think is what you said. Seems awfully low to me. There's another guy that I think should be 80, 90%. So it'd be interesting to see, like you said, what other people voted for.
So what you guys are telling me is I'm the sole Yankee, right, on a podcast with two Canucks, and you're both forgetting my boy Petey Williams? What's up with that, guys? Look, I give Konnan all the credit in the world. Konnan did a great job. All mad props to him, even if he is a complete hothead behind the scenes, and he is. But that's okay. We're not voting for hothead of the year award. If we did, you got my vote, buddy. But Petey Williams actually returned to the ring, and he appeared to have no ring rust whatsoever. He was by far and away the most over guy at those Canadian tapings. James, am I right or not? Because you were there, right?
Agreed, but I think you just kind of hit the nail on the head with regards to Konnan being there since, I think, March. Petey really only hit his stride at the beginning of November into the tapings. So if I'm looking at longevity, that's why I kind of favor Konnan over a good Canadian boy, Petey Williams.
I see that. I see that completely. Don't get me wrong. I see that completely. But of course, Petey's my homie, right? So I'm always going to root for my homie. You'll hear about that in a little bit. But at the same point in time, I mean, he really did not miss a beat, and he wrestled. And to me, that does mean something. So you guys say 80, 90%. I can see Konnan winning this. Look, I got no beef with Konnan winning here. I don't think it's as slanted as you guys are making it out to be. Canadians roll, man.
But also to add to that, I do agree that Petey Williams was huge at those Canadian tapings, but I was also factoring in the fact that Petey Williams, yes, it was really cool when he first started. Yes, he had no ring rust, but what did he do? He's done nothing. He was left in the X division, not to rot, but to do nothing really.
Didn't he get a title shot?
Yeah, he got a title shot.
Okay, I mean,
Yeah, but he hasn't been used in as many, as big of a fashion as Konnan and bigger stories. He's been used as Challenger of the Week often, especially with his Canadian tapings. He's been used as Challenger of the Week for Eli Drake, Challenger of the Week just to get the cheap face pops from the crowds. And I feel like just Konnan has brought more usefulness, I guess, in regards to storylines than Petey Williams, and that's why I voted Konnan over Petey Williams.
I love Petey Williams, but going forward in 2018, if I had to put my money on somebody that is going to have more, quote-unquote, an impact in the product, I'd have to lean towards Konnan as opposed to Petey Williams.
If we're talking 2018, I'd be surprised if Konnan makes it 2 years, to be honest with you. Just because he's Konnan. Not that I don't want him to. But all I'm going to say is, because you guys can tell I'm a Petey guy, don't forget to check out, if you haven't listened to it already, the Heelcast interview with Petey Williams. There's another guy who gives one heck of an interview. So, my boys.
We're going to keep the trend of LAX just racking up these titles, these awards going here with the Don West Award. So, LAX wins another award. For those who don't know what the Don West Award is, it's basically in honor of Don West, and it's basically any moment that'd make you go, oh my effing god, this just happened. So the big moment for this is when LAX returns for the first time ever and just absolutely destroys what's left of the tag team division. So for those who have been watching Impact for a while, definitely this would be an oh my god moment. This is an oh my god moment for me. I definitely see why this won, but yet again, 27%. I feel like that's a small number, but there's definitely. I wouldn't say it shouldn't be higher because there's other oh my god moments in Impact throughout the year, but I don't know. I feel like this is the deserving winner again, in my mind, anyways.
Well, I think the OMG award can be taken in a variety of ways. I kind of think of a negative side when Jarrett's regime first came on board. My OMG moments were how many times is a new authority figure going to come out in the same show and say, make Impact great again. I got stale after a while. I was saying OMG, but not in a good way. I thought that that led to a lot of negativity towards the product, recycled product that nobody wanted to see, kind of upset some of the wrestlers in the background, like Eli Drake, who apparently confronted Jeff Jarrett on the issue, being burying past regimes. So that was my kind of slight OMG moment. In terms of a big one that's positive, the LAX definitely returning during those March tapings was interesting. And one personal OMG moment was Bound for Glory landing in the city of Ottawa, which I was legitimately shocked at. How about you, Fireguy?
Oh yeah, for sure. When I heard that news, definitely I was freaking out kind of on the inside. I've never been to an Impact show because they've never come up here. They've always stayed down in the States. They've done shows in Toronto in the past, and well, I think have they come to Ottawa before, James?
To my recollection, no. The closest they've been to Ottawa, that's not in a Canadian city, is Messina. And for those of you listening, Messina is just across the border in the state of New York. And they came there on a Saturday evening, a house show when they used to run house shows. And that was back in 2013. That's the closest they've been to Ottawa since then. I think to any Canadian city since then.
But yeah, when I found out that, it was just huge news, and sadly, it was a really, really rough time in my family, and I wasn't able to get my tickets in time. They were sold out. I did manage to get tickets through just Impact personnel when I did the Lashley and Eli Drake interview for the website. So that kind of saved me, but it was just an awesome experience to attend that. So it was just awesome.
Yeah, the whole experience itself. From I brought my daughter to the meet and greet, the Crust and Crate, the pizza joint, and the wrestlers and the backstage man were so friendly and hospitable. And you hear this all about the time about the differences between Impact and other organizations. They do go that extra mile to make the fans feel special. And my daughter loved every minute of it. It kind of set the tone for the next evening for Bound for Glory. So the whole week was just filled with a lot of positives for me.
So yeah, like we just saw there, we can take the Don West Award in so many different ways. Was there anything else that you thought was oh my god in 2017 for Impact?
Well, yeah, and before I get to that, Ottawa's not that far from where I am. It's about a 7-hour drive or so. And I had actually talked with Greg, so we were thinking about driving up and going to Bound for Glory. And then, believe it or not, he winds up having a kid. And it turns out that I'm scheduled to be away that weekend anyhow. So wouldn't have been able to make it up. But I was excited for it to be so close as well. I think that would have been a lot of fun. Maybe they'll have to do it again next year. We can all get up there. As far as the Oh My God award, there was definitely an Oh My God on LAX, but again, you take it different ways, right? When I thought Oh My God, I think, what happened in Impact last year that made me go, holy shit, this is happening? And for me, it was when Jim Cornette showed up on Impact Television. I know it wasn't a long-term thing, but that was the moment that I recall going, my God, what the hell is happening here? How did that guy wind up on my TV tonight? So I think it's a safe bet to go with the LAX. At the same point in time, for me, that was like just a holy shit moment. Jim Cornette's in an Impact Wrestling ring. Never thought I'd see it again.
Scott Steiner and Jim Cornette in the same year in an Impact Wrestling ring.
Right?
That's when hell freezes over, right?
I love Scott Steiner. Don't even get me started on Scotty Steiner. one of my all-time favorites. He's just, I don't think I ever want to meet the guy, but One of my all-time favorite wrestlers.
But yeah, to add to that, you're kind of making me second guess myself. I think I didn't actually vote for the LAX for the Don West Award. I think that was for Match of the Year. I think I did vote for the Jim Cornette. I just got a bit mixed up on that. So yeah, what you were saying, Jim Cornette returning was huge, for sure. And it's sad that he had to leave Impact, because I feel like he was doing at least something positive on screen. He was not a bit, but in my mind, way better than Bruce on screen than as a management role. So definitely for sure that was another oh my god moment. But
I'll be honest with you, I haven't really missed the authority figures on my television lately. I think it's refreshing not to have them. But I like Jim Cornette. I think he's a good talk in the ring, much better than Bruce Pritchard. But having no authority figures for a while is kind of different, because it seems like every other promotion has an authority figure every week. So it's nice to have Impact not have any authority figures for a while.
Heck, they celebrate their favorite authority figures of all time. I'm just saying.
But yeah, leading into oh my god moments, we'll talk about basically the oh my god show of the year, the overall best show that Impact produced. And this year's winner is Slammiversary at 57%. So this, for me, was without a doubt the obvious winner. Impact has been treating Slammiversary as the bigger, better show for years now over Bound for Glory. And I see now in my mind that Slammiversary is always going to be Slammiversary is going to be a bigger show card, like on the card wise, like the matches that they'll show. And I'm not surprised at all. I voted for Slammiversary. The only other show that I feel could come even close to this, if you count only TV pay-per-views and actual pay-per-views, would probably be the Destination X TV pay-per-view they did a few weeks after, as those are the only two shows in my mind, I think, that were properly built up, that had a great card and great in-ring action to complement everything.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with the Slammiversary card, just because I was really happy that Scott Steiner and Matthews put on a good show with Borash and Parks when people were really hesitant to see what was going to be produced. And one could make an argument that that was probably one of the most entertaining aspects of that pay-per-view. I thought they did a really good job of selling it with the cameos and things like that. It added a flavor to the pay-per-view that was needed, along with the great wrestling. I was at you and I were at Bound for Glory. That didn't get rave reviews, but having been there live, I thought it was a good card to be there live. Not a great card, but a good card to be there live. But I don't think it translated well on TV. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, to add to that, I was just about to say, there's always that kind of bias you get when you attend a wrestling show live. It makes the experience that much better. You really have to take a step back, really, and then really think hard about it, and then really think and say, okay, it's really cool because I'm here live, but seeing it on TV, would it be that same level of excitement? And that was my big problem when I did my Bound for Glory review, was that I was trying to separate in my mind seeing it live and seeing it on TV. I rewatched a few things as they were shown on TV, and I can definitely see why Bound for Glory didn't get the rave reviews that Slammiversary got. But for sure, Bound for Glory was still a really cool show to see in person live, like you were saying, James.
You know, when you think of show of the year, everybody's going to basically pick, really remember the match they like the most and go with that. I'm not going to lie here. I'm going to actually be brutally honest. I am 95% sure that I voted for Slammiversary. And here's what makes that funny. I hadn't actually seen it yet. See, Impact kind of screwed up. They did it 4th of July weekend. I was on vacation. So I am literally on the boardwalk, getting text messages from Raven Effect and Griggs telling me that I forget what they were telling me, but they were making stuff up because I do that kind of stuff to them. So what goes around comes around. But I was getting the results, while I was away. I come back from vacation and it's time for the next show. And it's like, well, you know what? It's too late now. I'm not buying it. So I didn't get around to watching it on GWN until, believe it or not, New Year's Eve is when I sat down. I watched it on the Global Wrestling Network, and you know what? I voted for the right show. It was a fantastic show. They didn't screw it up by having the real match the next week like they've done in years past. They did everything right in the show, except they put it on a week when a lot of people are on vacation. And my guess is that the buy rate probably suffered from that a little bit. So if I was Impact, I'd put it a week sooner.
Yeah, and now to move on, you're mentioning the Global Wrestling Network, and that was a big thing that was created this year. And ImpactAsylum has spoken, and they said that the creation of the GWN, the Global Wrestling Network, was the headline of the year for Impact Wrestling, with a 30% vote for it. Me personally, I didn't vote for that. I voted for Jeff Jarrett returning the company, or just the whole Jeff Jarrett saga in general, basically, as a headline of the year. For me, since the Global Wrestling Network, the way I was picking in my mind for headline of the year was that it had to be something that was huge, that was covered by lots of different wrestling media sources, and had a big impact. Sadly, like big time sadly, Global Wrestling Network didn't get that huge reaction that Jeff Jarrett got when he returned, in my mind. I feel like the reason to blame for that was that Impact already had their Total Nonstop Access app out before, which kind of turned into a flop, and now they're trying to remake it with the Global Wrestling Network, and I feel like less people were attracted to the Global Wrestling Network after seeing what the Access app turned up being. But the Global Wrestling Network is still improving, and it's a really, really great start, and it has a really good foundation to go somewhere if Impact decided to really focus on it and make it become what it can become, because I know it has the possibility of becoming a huge, huge network for not just Impact, but all their partnerships around the world. And definitely, for sure, I see it becoming a headline later on, but at that time of the vote, I felt like the Global Wrestling Network just wasn't. It was a big deal if you were like a hardcore fan like us at the ImpactAsylum, but not many wrestling sources were covering it as much as Jeff Jarrett coming and then Jeff Jarrett leaving at the end and all that stuff that happened with him.
Two things for me. GWN is still in its infancy, so time will tell to see what kind of product it puts out. A year from now, if we're having this discussion and it's grown, then yeah, it would have been worth saying that was the story of the year. But I agree with Fireguy with regards to if the Jeff Jarrett entrance and the Jeff Jarrett departure led to the emergence of Don Callis and Scott D'Amore manning the reins of Impact Wrestling, I think to me that's my story of the year, because I see good things from two quality guys with regards to storyline and a vision, and finally some backing from Ed Nordum and Anthem, and everybody seems to be in cohesion with their vision. So that to me is my story of the year.
I would say if Jeff Jarrett leaving led to Scott and Don coming in and doing a great job, then I would give the story of the year to Scott and Don coming in and doing a great job. I saw this as a hard one, guys. This is the one that, as I'm sitting there as my pen and I'm checking it off, what am I going to click? I'm like, which do I click? In the end, I went with the Global Wrestling Network, believe it or not. And the reason was this. And in Fireguy, my logic was really similar to yours, believe it or not, but looking at it from a different angle. And that is, what are we going to be talking about in 2 or 3 years? And another regime change in Impact Wrestling is constant. They change regimes like I change underwear. Okay, maybe a little more often than I change underwear, right? So I kind of feel like people are going to forget about the mess. I mean, there's how many times have we had a terrible, nasty story about Impact Wrestling, right? I've lost count over the years, and I don't think anybody's got count, right? I don't think Dixie Carter can keep count anymore.
But yeah,
right?
dude, to cut you off, sorry. Yeah, just a little joke. If you're saying we're not going to talk about it in 3 years, but if these regime changes keep happening, maybe in 3 years, Jeff Jarrett will come back and leave again.
Right, he might. And then it'll be like, hey, he was there 3 years ago. I forgot all about it. But the bottom line is, I felt like, I'm a little down on the Global Wrestling Network now, guys, but I felt like the Global Wrestling Network is something that we'll be talking about 3 to 5 years from now, hopefully for better, possibly for worse. I was very hot on the Global Wrestling Network up until a couple weeks ago when they announced Twitch. And really, over the last week, as it's become more defined, they're putting their house shows on Twitch, right? If they're putting the house shows on Twitch, if they're putting all this other content on Twitch, and I don't need to pay for Twitch, the hell am I going to pay for the Global Wrestling Network?
Yes,
why?
That's a big thing that I disagreed with on Talon's newest article, Road to Redemption, where he mentioned that the whole Twitch and Global Wrestling Network situation, and they're so undermining the Global Wrestling Network by announcing this Twitch and this Twitch partnership. And I might be the odd one out, but I see very little positive to Twitch. Yes, there is positives, but they're completely letting go of this Global Wrestling Network by showing all this stuff on Twitch, like you said. Now, why would people pay?
To be fair to Talon, he wrote that article before it came out that they were doing some of the stuff on Twitch, because when this broke, I commented on Asylum, and he was right there agreeing with me. So I think the article might have been written before they announced that they're going to put the house shows and whatnot on. I don't have a problem with Twitch, just like I don't have a problem with Pluto, and I don't have a problem with Fight Network. I have a huge problem with them putting their house shows on it, because I'll be honest with you, I don't know, why would I want to buy the Global Wrestling Network now?
Yeah, there's nothing enticing, and like
zero.
I have the article up right now, and he said that he wants to use Twitch for live events and then use extra footage for the Global Wrestling Network.
Oh, so that's bad. That's bad.
See, that's the complete opposite. It should be the main focus is exclusive events. Everything goes on Global Wrestling Network, and then just run your old TNA episodes on the Twitch on nonstop 24/7 like they're doing now. Run maybe Explosion on there at the most, and then keep the bigger shows for Global Wrestling Network.
The only thing I can see is with the Twitch deal, you're obviously going to, because it's free, you're going to get more viewers. And if they can somehow promote the GWN network and have fans watch Twitch and say, geez, this is interesting, I haven't seen this before, where can I get go see more? That might lure some fans to their to the Global Wrestling Network. Having said that, though, it'd be interesting to ask somebody in management at one of these conferences they have, what exactly is the difference between the GWN and the Twitch network? What are fans who are paying for it getting different than they are to see it free on Twitch? That's a question I asked when I first heard the Twitch deal, and what are the ramifications for the GWN?
I feel like the only thing they could say about that is, if I was a member of management, the only thing I see in my mind that makes Global Wrestling Network different is that they offer more than just Impact, and you don't have to sit and wait for a match to come on the air on Twitch, because on Twitch it's just random, right? Meanwhile, Global Wrestling Network, if you're really invested in looking for a specific match, you can go and find it specifically instead of just Twitch just randomly streaming stuff, which is not much. That wouldn't entice me to pay $9.99 for it or whatever the price is.
Just do what you're doing with Pluto. Treat it as Pluto 2.0 and be done with it. I mean, honestly. I mean, that's what I would do. I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where we just got Scott and Don on a teleconference, what is it, about 2 weeks ago? Last week, whenever it was?
Yeah.
I don't think we're getting back anytime soon. But I can't wait for him to get Ed on, because I got all kind of questions for Ed. And this is the top of the list. Why are you competing with yourself? It's great that you have these platforms, but let's make them B-level platforms that promote the A-level platform. I'm your biggest fan that you've got, and I'm like, there's nothing on the GWN for me anymore, man. So, when my 3 months from buying Bound for Glory expires, if I haven't bought another pay-per-view and got another 3 months, I'm probably out. Isn't that terrible to say? But I like you. I want to support you, but I don't just want to write you a check because I like you. Earn it. You know what I'm saying?
So let's keep going in the same vein here. Headline of the year kind of ties in with most memorable moment of the year. This one was almost. It's really, really close. It had 47% of the votes. It's when Eli Drake outlasts the 19 other men in the Gauntlet for Gold to become global champion. And I'll be honest with you guys, that was one of the very few times where I actually, not freaked out, but, jumped out of my seat watching wrestling and being like, yes, finally, a wrestler has finally gotten what he deserves. He finally got the title, and I was just really happy that they actually managed as well to book him that strong throughout that match and make him seem a worthy champ for the title. I was afraid that they were going to hotshot the title to Johnny Impact, but they kept it with Eli Drake, and I was super, super happy of that. And I voted for that as most memorable moment, and it's really it's the most memorable moment in my mind for 2017. I know the whole moment by heart practically in my mind.
As someone who likes the background stuff, to me, I liked Eli Drake for in-ring action, but I thought a telltale sign of Anthem's new management was the letting Jeff Jarrett go. And to me, that spoke volumes of the regime and them not sitting on the fence, waiting months, perhaps years, to make those changes that fans were calling for. They saw a potential problem with Jeff Jarrett. They let him go. That, to me, like I said, spoke volumes in terms of the direction and the vision that they wanted to have, and that they weren't going to linger on issues that could potentially give a black eye or a bigger black eye to the company. So in-ring action, definitely Eli Drake. But to me, the bigger picture was the decision-making, the quick decision-making by Anthem in the background to let fans know that they were serious about the product and changing old habits.
This was my headline of the year. This was my most memorable moment of the year as well. But the one thing that people always forget was that there was a guy that stayed with him that entire match and sold the living hell out of it. A guy by the name of Eddie Edwards. And in my opinion, that was one of the most well-booked matches that I have seen in a very long time. And they picked the exact right guy. By sending the two of them there together, they told a heck of a story. I had read the spoilers, I'm not going to lie. I knew Eli Drake was the world champ. In fact, I think they spoiled it themselves, to be honest with you. But I still found myself thinking that Eddie might win at times. And that just means that those two men sold that so incredibly well that they made that moment special. And kudos to Impact for putting a guy there with Eli that could sell it. Because it takes two to tango, right? You have to have the guy that's going over, but somebody's got to put him there too. And Eli did a great job in and of himself, but Eddie Edwards was right there to help Eli Drake get that and make that so memorable. So thank you very much, Eddie Edwards. Probably my biggest mark-out moment, short of when EY won the title, right? Eli, he won it on a live or semi-live show, and when he went over Magnus and pile drived him, I jumped out of my chair and screamed. My wife was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Hey, EY's the champ! EY's the champ!" Because it was such a feel-good moment, and this was second only to that. You saw it coming. You obviously knew it was coming, so that they kind of spoiled it a little bit. But it was a fantastic match, and I give Eli Drake all the credit in the world. But I also got a shout out to Eddie Edwards on that, because that man was fantastic in that spot, and he made sure that Eli Drake looked like the champion that he now is.
For sure. Talking about selling and the wrestlers making the matches feel special, we'll move on to the best of the X division. So obviously, to be the best, you need to be overall best wrestler out there. You have to be the best talker, the best in-ring wrestler. you have to sell, you have to do all that stuff. And Impact Asylum voted for Trevor Lee as best of X Division at 40%. So I disagree with that. I feel like people voted based off of Trevor Lee's wrestling outside of Impact. In Impact, he's not all that memorable. He hasn't done all that much stuff. I've seen his wrestling outside of Impact. It's way better than what he's shown on TV on Impact. I voted for Desmond, I think. Yeah, I voted for Desmond because for me, Desmond is just miles over Trevor Lee. Either in ring, on the mic, it's hard to guess because in the X Division, not really. The mic talk, like the mic and all that stuff, isn't really focused on as much as the in ring. So for me, Desmond Xavier was best of X Division in my mind.
I would have to say Lee for me because I think he carried the division all year. I mean, I like Xavier, I like Ishimori, I like the return of Petey Williams and what Garza brought to the X Division. But like you said, someone who can talk, do the quality in-ring work, is great as a heel. He's done that all year. Probably deserves the nod over the other guys we've mentioned who probably need more character development, in my mind, to even be in the running for this award.
Well, James, I think you just said everything I was getting ready to say. I'm not sure I really have anything to add. Nah, it's great. It's great. Great minds think alike. So do ours. Yeah, Trevor Lee as well for exactly why James said. I love Desmond Xavier. If you ask me who I would prefer to go see wrestle a match, I'd love to watch Desmond Xavier go wrestle a match, right? Much more than Trevor Lee. Trevor Lee looks a little lost in the X Division, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. I feel like he would be better off in the mid-card, but character-wise, even without talking a whole lot, Trevor Lee manages to tell a good story and manages to get over, and he manages to, it feels like it means something when he comes out. So to me, he was the obvious choice here. Matt Sydal is another guy that people should be talking about. I know he's moved up the card, but why not move Trevor Lee up the card too a bit? Matt Sydal, fantastic in ring. Absolutely been loving watching Matt Sydal for the last several years, even when he was with Ring of Honor. Another one of my favorites. But again, Matt Sydal is the guy that came in, I guess, mid-year or so, right? He didn't have the run with the belt. But he just put on some fantastic matches. And again, he doesn't quite have the character that Trevor has. So I go with Trevor here. Same stuff that James said.
But yeah, my wish for Matt Sydal is new theme music. That theme music puts me to sleep. No, Trevor Lee comes out. It's theme music. To me, it's wrestling theme music. When I hear Matt Sydal's music, it feels like I should be doing yoga or something like that.
Have you heard his ROH theme though? Sydal.
No, I have not.
Okay.
Is it better than what I'm hearing on Impact?
Believe it or not, it is the exact same thing, but 10 times better. It's amped up, and it really comes out nice. But they muted it, and they toned it down, and so it's like I'm doing yoga now. But his ROH theme music is almost, you should listen to it sometime, but it's like amped up. And it's just light years better, and I don't know what they were thinking. It's like they wanted to steal it, but they couldn't, so they redid it. And they just toned it down, and it's like, you want to go to sleep. Yeah.
But yeah, crazy idea for Impact. I know it's really crazy, but maybe they could move Trevor Lee up the card, and then maybe actually use Andrew Everett for once and actually give him the push that he was going to get earlier in the year before it got taken away from just because of everyone, all the new people that were getting put into the X Division. And they could maybe actually use Andrew Everett because I feel like he's criminally misused, and he could fit really, really well in the X Division. But that's just a crazy idea.
I don't know who he pissed off. But he had to have pissed somebody off, man. I do not know why the guy's not used. He's incredibly talented. He seems like a great guy. Okay, there's no reason like not to like him. But I can't answer that question. I have no criminally misused. Might even be an understatement, Fire Guy. Just put the guy on TV and give him a chance. Like, he's been there forever. He's done nothing wrong. He's done everything right. But it's like, we're not going to give you a title run. We're going to give it back to Trevor for the 18th time now.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Give my boy a run.
So let's move on.
One guy I'd like to see back, though, is DJZ, providing he can stay healthy. I don't know what his status is with the company, but he always added something to the X Division. having seen him when he first entered Impact Wrestling to seeing what he was doing before he got injured, he has jumped leaps and bounds to from where he started to where he is now. He could definitely be a player in the X division if they brought him back and they brought him back properly.
I think he's injured again, isn't he?
Yeah, he's injured again.
Yeah, again.
But he always seems to be injured. So if he can stay healthy and they can bring him back and get him to a program like Andrew Everett or Ishimori or Xavier, those would be good feuds.
Yeah,
well, I don't think they sent him down to AAA and they sent him out to Noah. So they actually brought him back, but they shipped him off to do basically a world tour, and he got injured and never made it back on the show. So it's like they don't have creative for him, but they like him. Guy's amazingly talented.
Yeah, and if his injury that he, the main one that he sustained last year, he's counting his blessings that he not just is able to wrestle still, but pretty much survive. That was a really bad injury that he sustained there, and I'm surprised that he's back wrestling so quick or wrestling at all. So we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on from the high flyers now to the women, the knockouts division, knockouts of the year. This one really close down the middle, 52%, and it goes to Rosemary. So honestly, I can't really think of anyone else. Just overall, her character has been super intriguing from the get-go with Decay until the end of Decay, when she was on her own with her singles run. Yes, at sometimes her booking was a bit questionable, and Impact did misuse her a few times, but I feel like she was the knockout of the year. She put on some great matches, and definitely overall, I can't think of anyone else that deserves this spot other than Rosemary.
Yeah, I think when you think of franchise player right now for the Knockouts division, you think of Rosemary. I don't think there's really anybody else that can compete with her. Having said that, though, LVN, who kind of came out of nowhere, has done wonders with really what was a questionable character to begin with, but she got that character over. I think she deserves some praise in terms of what she's done with that character and how far she's brought that character. But in the end, Rosemary, hands down.
Gee, who do we think that I've voted for Knockout of the Year? Let's see. Oh, that's right. There was that interview that we did with Rosemary. Yeah, this is a no-brainer, guys, and this is not a down the middle thing because I'm sure Sienna got plenty of votes, I'm sure Allie got plenty of votes, and I'm sure LVN got plenty of votes, and Rosemary still had more votes than everybody else put together. Bottom line is she held the title for more than the first 5 months of the year, almost about half the year. She held the Knockouts title. People seem to forget that. She was invited involved in the single biggest feud, right? That was headed into Bound for Glory. Right, with Taya. She was prominently on the card, and actually she had the only singles women's match in that because Gail Kim was a three-way with Sienna and Allie. So when you think of it this way, she was booked very prominently throughout the year. She didn't go over the way we'd like to see her go over, right? But yeah, booked very prominently in the way that she should. LVN, what more can you say about her? James hit the nail on the head. This is a character that was absolutely a terrible idea. Never should have happened. And she got it to the point where they had to keep her on television by having her driving through the crowd in a scooter and giving her 30 seconds on TV because they couldn't take her off TV. Right? I don't know how you don't appreciate what that woman did. Sienna was gold. Okay? Everything Sienna did. And this is a shame. Nobody's talking about Sienna. All she did was everything right. She was an amazing champion, promoted the company like no one else, really. And she went out and had great match after great match. Just conducts herself just amazingly well, on and off screen. But they are talking about Allie, and why wouldn't they be talking about Allie? I mean, she was fantastic too. I hear people sometimes say that they feel the Knockouts division is lacking star power. It's lacking top characters. Okay, we did just lose Laurel Van Ness, right? But when you look around that division is absolutely loaded. This is the best Knockouts division that we've seen. But by far and away, Rosemary is still the knockout of the year. She is still at the pinnacle of this division, and she needs to continue to be at the pinnacle of this division.
Yeah, just to add to Rosemary's resume, I guess you could say, an Impact for 2017. She had I won't say 5-star matches, but they were awesome matches. With Jade, the string of matches they had, Red versus Blue, and all that was really, really fun and overall really well done.
And one of the things, too, we forget about Rosemary, which is unfortunate, but what happened in Mexico and with Sexy Star and how much reaction that got from the fans. Usually, if you go to forums, you don't see, but some of those forums and some of the comments, you could tell just how over she is with fans when Sexy Star either legitimately or not legitimately tried to hurt her. We'll never know for sure.
It was legitimate. Okay?
Legitimate.
Let me confirm that right now. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was legit.
Didn't she go on camera to say it was? Like, didn't she say in an interview?
I don't think she ever said, she outright stated she tried to hurt her on purpose. But my whole point being here is that if you want to talk somebody who's over, somebody who gets legitimately injured, if you take any other knockout, I'm sure you get some kind of reaction, but because it was Rosemary, because it was a franchise player, it garnered huge fan interest, not only from fans, but also from wrestlers, not even within Impact, but outside of Impact as well. So once again, if you're looking at franchise players for the Knockouts division, you look at Rosemary.
So now did the best of each division, but now we must award the best wrestler overall in Impact, the best overall Impact player of the year. This one is a landslide again, and there's no one else I can think of that could possibly get close to this. And this is Eli Drake. So Eli Drake is my favorite wrestler in Impact, and overall in 2017, he's shown that he is worthy of being in Impact and worthy of holding the title. He has been booked amazingly. His mic work is just miles above lots of people in the wrestling business. He's definitely great in ring as well, and he can definitely really sell a story and really, through his words and through his actions, really hate the guy when he's being a heel, but also at the end really like the guy since he is that cool kind of asshole character. But the only other name I could think of that could get close to this would be Lashley, because Lashley in 2017 showed that he wasn't just all brawn and just wrestling. He pulled out amazing mic work, which I don't know where it came from, but just I guess he gets to play the heel. He's way more comfortable playing the heel than he is face, and we saw some incredible mic work from him. But overall, Eli Drake was just shown more prominently and was shown as a bigger deal, and he is a bigger deal in my mind. So Eli Drake, landslide, easily.
I think when you look at a wrestler that can do it all in Impact Wrestling, I think Eli Drake is hands down my choice. I remember when Drew Galloway brought him in several years ago, you could tell even though he was green at that time, he had the charisma, he had that attitude in the ring to do big things. I'm glad it finally came to fruition for him this year. Eli Drake, to me, is a great choice.
You know, I voted for Eli Drake here because I felt like he deserved a singles award, right? And I did not give him, any sort of an up-and-comer award or whatnot because I thought that he was already made. To be honest with you, though, I would make a strong case for Lashley. You guys mentioned. I thought he had phenomenal matches with everybody. I thought that he was prominently featured throughout the year, and I thought that he just kept trucking along. He has legitimately become a beast. And he's a guy that really could be built into a household name very quickly. Very quickly. I was watching an old clip of Goldberg, believe it or not, recently, and he was coming out to save Diamond Dallas Page. And the speed with which Goldberg got in the ring and, speared Raven and took him out and started jackhammering people. That is something, that intensity is something you don't see a whole lot. And while Eli Drake is amazing on the mic, Lashley's a guy that you could literally build around that, right? And if you think about it, you could also get a very important demographic, right? That isn't really well represented in other companies at the same time. So to me, I definitely could make an argument for Lashley. He held the belt a lot, and he did everything that was asked of him. That having been said, let's face it, this was the year of Eli Drake. This was the year that was meant to be Eli Drake's year, and that's why Eli's, been carrying the belt for a while now. They want to build Eli Drake up to be the next guy. What I will say about Eli Drake, and I'm one of the very few people which is critical of him in any way, shape, or form, is that he really does need to make sure that he becomes Eli Drake. At times during this run, he has become Ric Flair Jr. At other times, he's become The Rock Part 2, right? And at other times, he's become Mini Hogan. And it all kind of depends on what promo he's giving as to how he comes off. I'd like to see him be a little bit more Eli Drake all the time. And then I think at that point, he will actually morph into that star and maybe start to become a draw. Because right now, he's a phenomenal talent, but he's not really drawing. So again, Player of the Year, absolutely, I voted for Eli Drake. I could definitely make an argument for Lashley, though.
Yeah, to add to what you're saying, I could criticize Eli Drake as well, even though he is my overall favorite in Impact. I thought at the start that he wasn't overall the best wrestler in ring. He's not all that technical. He's not all that super flippies. He's not all about that style. But you see that over time, he is improving. You see that every taping cycle, he's trying new stuff in the ring. You see him talk about it on Twitter often. He's always there. He's always trying to learn new tricks and new moves and new ways to work a match in the ring to come off bigger and better every single time. And when I did that interview with Eli Drake and Lashley, you saw that he has an insane drive for wrestling. His love for wrestling is definitely there. And depending on... I feel like he's really loyal to Impact, so they can definitely... if they decide to build a brand around him as a center name, because he is overall just a fantastic wrestler.
And let's not forget that his match with Johnny Impact was fantastic. I mean, Eli Drake did stuff in that match we don't normally see Eli Drake do. So I don't think he is as bad in the ring. Not that anybody thinks he's bad, but I think he's a little better than he lets on. I think he wrestles what his competition is doing, and he really showed me something in that Johnny Impact match.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about little things that Eli Drake could improve on, I'm thinking like a small thing, but to me it's a big thing, is during interviews outside of the ring, dress like a champion. Don't put the tank top on, don't put jeans on, conduct yourself like a champion. It's those little things that spell charisma, to me, goes a long way in developing that character.
Yeah, for sure. So that's the list of all the best of 2017 awards from Impact Asylum. So now we're going to move on to the roster changes that happened.
Wait a minute. Match of the year. I missed Match of the Year.
Oh, Match of the Year?
Yeah, we can't forget Match of the Year.
Oh my God, okay.
Oh, right?
Almost, okay, so Match of the Year, just as important as Player of the Year. Surprised I missed that one. Holy crap. Match of the Year, Bound for Glory. One of the probably the big match that was coming out of Bound for Glory that everyone was talking about was LAX versus OVE 5150 street fight. Seeing it live was just absolutely amazing. I was on the other side of the arena when they did the big dive from the top of the structure, so I didn't get to see it fully, but I was right beside when they did the table spot beside the ramp. I was literally right beside the barrier, so it was really cool to see that way up front and get that interaction with the wrestlers. But overall, that match was Match of the Year just because of how insane it was. You could really feel the animosity between both teams, and that's what I really liked about this feud thus far, is that these two teams go through hell every single match. They do insane spots every single match. If it's either no DQ or just this normal match, they're always innovative, and this match definitely deserves match of the year in my book.
It would have been a perfect match for me had the ending not been botched. I didn't like
True.
the ending. What's that?
Oh, I was just saying true, yeah. Sammy, it was a bit weird, that ending. It was a bit confusing.
Right, because there were so many things going on, and then for him to randomly show up. And let's face it, we knew who he was because we follow wrestling religiously. But for the masses there, and maybe some people on the television watching this at home, they're saying, who is this guy? And the move wasn't exactly executed to perfection, which led to to some question marks in terms of the pin in the ring. That's how I felt confused. But overall, the match itself was excellent, but the ending left me wanting a little more.
I think I actually voted for Eddie and Davey, to be honest with you, just because they put on some amazing matches. And they had one match in particular, I forget which one it was, that was just off the absolute charts. And both, again, two of my favorites. To be honest with you, if I were to go back and revote now that I've seen Slammiversary, I really did enjoy the Broken Universe match, right? The Borash and Park versus Matthews and Steiner match. I think I enjoyed it for a few reasons. First of all, it was different, and we're not likely to see much more of the Broken Universe now, right? It also proves that Impact does it better, and it really wasn't Matt Hardy, right? It kind of says wink, wink, nod, nod. Jeremy Borash did this, or he can do it without you. And I haven't heard of Woken Matt being over a whole bunch in WWE. So I guess there was that bit of satisfaction out of it as well. But let's face it, you get a pull, and you get Shark Boy in a pull. Okay, and you want to talk about, again, mark out moments. Shark Boy's he's just a character. That's it. There's nothing special about him except that he's just a fun character. Shark Boy shows up in the pool, and then he comes out and he's wrestling in the ring with him again. This was just a fun match for me. It might not be a 5-star match. I'm sure Count's out there somewhere with a headache right now because I'm just mentioning a comedy match as my match of the year. But it did garner a lot of votes, and it was one of the ones that was listed. It was just a lot of fun. If I'm going to watch another match again, I'd probably watch that one.
The highlight for me of that match was Steiner and Josh Matthews in the vehicle chasing Park and Borash.
You mean the golf cart, right?
Yeah, and it was a golf cart, sorry.
Get in here, you dummy!
Steiner coming in fat asses. It was very funny. It was very, very well done.
But yeah, that's one thing I enjoy. It's not really it's one of the things that I really, really enjoyed, and I think that Impact could do to make themselves different. Yes, people can say that Lucha Underground has that cinematic backstage segments, those cinematic matches down flat. And yes, I do watch Lucha Underground religiously. But Impact can still pull that off and put their own twist on it. They can take it and put a more realistic twist on it, kind of like what they're doing. They did with the LAX versus OVE storyline, with going to like the clubhouse and all that stuff, and still make it cinematic, but while keeping the more American professional wrestling tone to it, and making it special in that sense. And that's why I really enjoyed that match, since it made it unique, and it showed that wrestling can be pulled off, not just in a ring, and you can get pulled off by doing camera work and cinematics and stuff like that, and still pull off not a 5-star match like you said. It wasn't technical in any way, shape, or form, but it was overall still something entertaining, and you can still pull off wonders with stuff like that. So, we're gonna move on now. I think we covered all the awards, right?
That's the only one I thought we missed. Yeah, that was the only one I saw.
Yeah. So now we'll move on to the roster changes now. We're going to go just through each division, talk about maybe a few names here and there, the big departures. We're not going to really care about the smaller names that left. We're going to go division by division. As we know, wrestling isn't wrestling without the wrestlers. So it's always important, if we're going to do a retrospect of 2017, to talk about the roster changes, the additions, the departures, and everything that's affected the on-screen product of Impact Wrestling. So we're going to start off in the tag team division, where we had a few departures and a few signings as well. The biggest name in 2017, I guess you could say, that left Impact was the Hardys. So the Hardys were one of the first to leave once Anthem came in at the beginning of 2017. Am I correct there?
Well, I think when they left in March, I think with Bennett and Galloway, I think and Jade had also left at that time, along with the Hardys. So there's a mass exodus there.
Yeah, that was the big first mass exodus, like you were saying, once Anthem came in. And that was a big blow, I guess you could say, to Impact. The Hardys were doing their thing with the Broken Universe, and overall was garnering a good feedback from the public. No, it wasn't making Impact getting Impact millions of viewers on their weekly show, but it was still something entertaining. People wanted them to stay, and overall, it just led to they just departed because of contracts being messed up and all that. And personally, I see it as I saw it as a big blow back then, but the more I thought about it was that Impact can survive with or without them. The Broken Universe can only go so far before it falls flat on its ass. It wasn't gonna last forever. Yes, it was fun at the start, but for sure, that was one of the bigger blows that Impact took in 2017 as far as departures go.
Well, I thought the Hardys were oversaturating Impact TV for too long, and I thought it was already kind of wearing thin when they left. And what I didn't want to see was them re-sign and have them continue to monopolize Impact Television and take away opportunities for other wrestlers. So it was somewhat of a blessing in disguise that they left. I'm not going to sugarcoat and say nothing changed. Obviously, it created a lot of controversy for the company because of what happened afterwards. But I think it did open some doors, and it forced creative to go in different directions without the Hardys, which led maybe to the emergence of Eli Drake, which may or may not have happened had they stayed.
I think this is a huge loss. First of all, I don't disagree with anything you guys are saying. In fact, I'd say I agree with just about all of it. Particularly, James, which you were saying about them maybe kind of getting toward the end of the road with that gimmick. But here's why this is such a big loss. And it isn't just because of the name, right? The name Hardy had been in Impact Wrestling for 7 years, right? And then the needle would move, but maybe not in the right direction. It's what they were doing at the time they left. They were going around to local promotions, filming matches, winning titles, and bringing them back to Impact. And what that was doing was creating a buzz, right? And that was sort of the first bits that we saw partnerships. And the Hardys kind of single-handedly formed, it didn't last, but a Ring of Honor and Impact relationship, right? And in fact, to this day, Ring of Honor really owes Impact an appearance, right? Because the Hardys went to ROH, and we were supposed to get the bucks out of it, and it didn't happen. So they were able to forge those relationships, and they went out of their way to do a lot of that with that world tour. So to me, it's the world tour, and in fact, the Hardys were doing it. I showed up at a local indie event near my home that was actually on Impact. Believe it or not, we were actually filmed on Impact, and the Hardys were there, and you could not get in the building. I mean, that building was packed. They were all there to see the Hardys. Every single one of them. I've been doing events since then, and it was not the same. That place was just absolutely jam-packed, and everybody wanted to see the Hardys. JB was there, and Matt and Jeff were there. Did a signing with Matt and Jeff, met JB as well. But I think when you look at what happened afterwards with Rebby, I mean, that's kind of like showing your true colors. I think we all knew what her true colors were beforehand, mind you. But sometimes you're better off without people. But I really think that world tour, had they continued it even for a couple more months to get it through its conclusion, at least for God's sakes, return with the belts and don't just have them magically appear in Decay's hands, would have been huge. So was this kind of coming to a close? Probably. but what they were doing at the time, I think it really had an opportunity to be a long-term needle mover as people became a little bit more engaged in the product.
Had they not been on television consistently, so they go on these world tours, they disappear for 2 or 3 months, then they return to Impact Wrestling where things are kept fresh and the product is not getting stale. To me, something like that could have worked, but to see this week in and week out, I think it would have won out its run before we could have really capitalized on it. So I agree with you, but if you keep wrestlers off TV for a certain amount of time, it wants fans wanting them more, craving them more, so when they do return, it's actually meaningful and impactful.
I was just going to add to what Dude was saying, blessing in disguise. I completely agree with what James was saying, but my blessing in disguise in this situation was the whole ROH debacle. For those who see my comments on the forums in ImpactAsylum, I am not a fan of the Young Bucks whatsoever. I find them the most useless tag team that can possibly exist in mainstream wrestling. I do not like them whatsoever. I get that they're big sellers. They'll get eyes to turn. But I find my blessing in disguise that they didn't show up in Impact because I would have skipped their segment or match entirely. I just don't like the guys. Not personally, just I don't like their wrestling. I don't like what they bring to the ring as a tag team.
Okay, for nostalgia's sake, watch the Bound for Glory match, tag team match between the Motor City Machine Guns and the Young Bucks. It happened, and I think that's an excellent match.
Yeah, and they're better now.
Yeah.
The Bucks have gotten better. I mean, that's a scary thing.
Well, no, that's the opposite. What I think, I find they were good at the start. Now it's just cool. You can do a super kick. Wow, what's else? No, there's nothing else. Okay, just super kicks. I feel like they got progressively worse with their super kick crap and all their merch selling and stuff like that, which led to just them continuously using that one move. And I just find it's just getting completely stale in my mind.
Have you watched them in the last couple of years? Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, they have an occasional super kick party, but not nearly like they did a few years ago. They're not. They were one move super kick party for about a year. They were. Then there's no doubt about it. But they're a little more diverse than that now.
I stopped watching. Ring of Honor is the main source, right? Where they appear. Yes, they appear for in Japan and stuff like that. But my main source was for Ring of Honor, and I stopped watching Ring of Honor about, I'd say, a year and a half ago because, well, that wasn't the only reason I wouldn't stop watching a Ring of Honor just because of a tag team, but that was one of the reasons why I stopped watching the show. It was just getting ridiculous, and I just couldn't handle it. I was like, okay, time to stop watching for a while, and I haven't had time to get back into Ring of Honor as of late. Just too busy. But moving on to the rest of the tag team, Reno Scum, not much to talk about. They came, they went, they were Jeff Jarrett boys. The only thing interesting to mention would be what Impact had planned for them if Adam Thornstyle wouldn't have got injured. Maybe they would have gotten a title shot, or they maybe would have held the titles for a bit. I'm not sure, but with LAX and OVE coming in, those are the two big teams that made an impact in 2017. The return of LAX with Konnan and Homicide, and with the new guys like Santana, Ortiz, Diamante, and OVE coming in, looking like a bunch of dorks, but then Sammy saved them a bit after Bound for Glory. Those are the two big teams, I think, to talk about right now over Reno Scum. They basically made a way bigger impact than Reno Scum ever did.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Veterans of War and Reno Scum never really did anything for me. I think they were forced down our throats. To me, it's more about the departures. We've already talked about the Hardys, but one guy that gets lost in the shuffle that was an impact player in the tag team division was Crazy Steve, and he ended up taking off as well to go get the tryout for another organization, and that essentially broke up Decay. Now, we talk about blessings in disguise. Maybe Rosemary wouldn't have gotten her singles push that she had with Crazy Steve sticking around, but that really fragmented the tag team division, and it left LAX to carry it for a long time until OV kind of got their feet underneath them.
And the only reason why I would have kept Reno Scum and Veterans of War, I feel like Veterans of War as a concept were okay. The wrestlers were quite lacking. But at least right now, I really hope they don't continue the LAX versus OVE feud. I feel like it's ran its course. Maybe they can keep going for a bit longer, but they have no one else in the division. And I feel like if they would have kept Reno Scum and Veterans of War, it would have at least been warm bodies, even though not the best teams. At least it's not. At least they have a division instead of two teams just continuously fighting and it getting stale.
Well, see, again, I think they dropped the ball with Veterans of War. Here's when we're looking at AAA and their relationship with AAA. I would have had Veterans of War go down to Mexico, be the cocky American heels, but have Phantasma, El Tejano, Pagano, whoever come to Impact Wrestling, and in reverse, them beating the heels. To me, that could have worked. But they felt stale from the beginning. They never got over with the fans, and they last one set of tapings, so...
Yeah, they lasted one set of tapings because they suck. I mean, let's just call a spade. Those guys really weren't that talented.
Yeah, they are.
If they wanted to do that, they should have done that with James Storm. James Storm gave a promo in the Impact Zone against the AAA guys. If he would have given, and I said this on the heel cast, right? And FK9 damn near dropped his jaw. If he would have given the exact same promo, word for word in Mexico, okay, he would need an armed escort out of that country. The heat that would have been generated would have been freaking nuclear. Okay? And then they should have had Tejano, right, and Phantasma, and whoever else they wanted to bring up from AAA come up and give the same effective one in the Impact Zone. And that would have gone nuclear.
Well, and that goes back to the regional days. And when I first thought of all these wonderful opportunities that Impact had with their promotions, you look back at the Midnight Rockers feuding with the Rock and Roll Express. The Midnight Rockers represented the AWA, and the Rock and Roll Express were in the Mid-Southern. And what you were talking about is what they were doing. So it was regional pride at stake. One played the heels when they were in their adversary's territory, and vice versa, and it worked very well. And I think that's something that they should capitalize on in the future, is develop those local rivalries with a twist.
Bringing back territories in 2018 wrestling.
No, but what I'm saying is that people's mentality in AAA is much different than it is here in Impact Wrestling in North America. So that's what you want to play off of. So what's not popular here might be extremely popular in AAA. So if you want to develop those characters, it's a way of doing it. And showing goodwill to an alliance promotion that you have as well.
For sure, yeah. But besides Veterans of War, it's kind of surprising we stuck on Veterans of War over the rest of the tag teams. But yeah, like you were saying, LAX carried for most of the year. OVE came in. They were the next legit tag team. At the start, I wasn't buying them. They just looked like a bunch of dorks that wore masks. And when they cut their first promo, it was super disappointing because you'd think they'd have like a similar, like, not scary, but really weird vibe to their promos, like Rosemary or similar, since they do wear the masks and they have the whole emo dork thing going.
And I don't want to harp too much on OVE, but what I remember about their first match in Impact Wrestling was almost losing to a couple of ham and eggers.
Exactly, yeah. That's
it
true.
Didn't exactly bode well for their future when they're possibly losing their first match to a couple of no-names we've never heard of.
Well, they looked like indie wrestlers when they got there.
Yeah.
It wasn't until Sammy joined, they started doing all hardcore stuff. They actually looked like they were halfway talented, even in the ring. Okay, yeah. I mean, they look like, independent promotion jobbers, and I couldn't believe they'd already shoved the freaking belts around their waist, and I'm going, oh my god, this is terrible. But
when they finally started wrestling, they've proven their worth. Like, I don't know if I doubt LAX carries them. OVE definitely have the wrestling skills. Every single match we've seen of LAX versus OVE, there's always something new. There's always something creative. There's always these new tag moves that are amazing. One that sticks in my mind was when they had the LAX if LAX lose, they leave match right before the Barbed Wire Massacre. I guess super cutter from the top is still something that is in my mind. I just thought it was a really cool move, especially when it came out of the blue like that. And they just keep coming up with innovative tricks like that, and having cool finishers like the Street Sweeper and stuff like that. It just makes two teams that are really amazing in the tag division, and hopefully they don't lose them because they definitely need tag teams right now. So to move on, we're going to move on to the knockouts now. So throughout the year, we lost the likes of Maria Kanellis, Jade, Marty Bell, and Gail Kim, the most recent this year. Of course, we also lost Jenkins as well. But the two big names I think we should talk about here are Jade and Gail Kim. Marty Bell didn't all do that much in Impact, minus the Dollhouse stuff. Kanellis, I'll talk about her later when we bring up Mike Bennett. I feel like Mike Bennett is a bigger deal than... Well, I guess that Maria is a bigger deal than Mike, since she was in WWE for a while. But I feel like Jade and Gail Kim were just bigger impacts to the part. Gail Kim has been with Impact for a long time. She was the head of the Knockouts division. She was the John Cena of the Knockouts division, getting pushed to the moon over everyone else. Obviously, I'm not saying she shouldn't have, because she's really talented, but she was definitely a big hit to lose. We knew she was retiring anyways, but it was still a hard blow. But it was cool that she won her last title at Bound for Glory. Meanwhile, Jade was just as talented, and she's the bigger hit in my mind, since she left so unexpectedly to pursue that WWE dream, joining the Mae Young Classic tournament and risking her shot to get to WWE there.
Yeah, I think the bigger one for me is Gail Kim. I like Jade. I think she was talented. I wasn't devastated like everybody else was when she left. If you want to pursue greener patches, go right ahead. That told me she was invested elsewhere. Gail Kim has always been invested with Impact Wrestling. Whether or not you think she gets a Cena effect in the ring, she's still extremely talented. She still adds quality to that ring. So losing her in the ring to me is a bigger blow than losing Jade.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Gail is the draw. Gail is the John Cena of the division. You don't want to lose your John Cena. That's why he's John Cena, right? He might have 5 moves. That might be it. He might get booed like hell when he gets near pretty much anybody, except maybe Roman Reigns, apparently anyway. But you don't want to lose that. Maria Kanellis was fantastic. Let's not kid ourselves. But let's also not kid ourselves. She also held everybody back because she was just a figure that talked, right? And so she kind of took that spotlight from some of the other ones. Look at Sienna after she left. Look at Laurel Van Ness after she left. Look at how they excelled when she left. So her leaving, and I love Maria. I really do. I think the world of Maria Kanellis, but her leaving was a blessing to that division.
But yeah, like you talking about Maria, I guess I have to go on my tiny little rant now about Mike Bennett. Him leaving, I feel, was one of the not bigger ones, but the most stupid departures I've seen in recent times. Bennett leaving just to go to WWE, and I feel like he deserves it. He deserves to play the cuckold husband of Maria in WWE or whatever he's doing now as a jobber, being cucked by his wife or whatever gimmick he's playing now, some loser husband gimmick. I feel like he deserved it. I feel like he had it. He was okay in Impact, and I don't see why he departed, minus just to chase the WWE dream. And yes, maybe he is getting paid more in WWE. That's not for sure, but I just feel it was a really dumb move for him leaving, especially with what and how WWE's been using him lately, with just such an embarrassing gimmick and character with Kanellis.
I think I'm one of the few people that actually enjoyed Mike Bennett in the ring. I thought when he was promoted right and given the opportunity, he was capable of having some really good matches. He had some good matches with EC3. I'm never going to fault somebody for wanting to pursue other avenues. Having said that, though, he has done absolutely nothing since the transition. Same thing with Maria. They have both floundered since the return to the WWE, and I think it's actually hampered their careers rather than elevated.
I was a big proponent of Mike Bennett back in his ROH days, all the way until he came to Impact Wrestling. In fact, he once told me on Twitter, he actually thanked me for pushing for him to come to Impact Wrestling. That's how outspoken I was about bringing Mike Bennett in. And I love the guy. I think he's a fantastic talent. I think he's a great human being. I think he has two flaws. I think he speaks his mind a little too much on his Twitter account. Mike, we've had this discussion. And I think that holds him back because I think he turns certain people off, right? And as a talent, I don't think you should ever try to turn anybody off, especially when you have a talent that Mike Bennett has, right? I do think, however, he'll make a great politician one day. I should throw that out there. That having been said, his other is his addiction, right? His addiction to painkillers. That's really something that I think he needed to go to WWE to get into that wellness program. Right, so an absolute blessing for him. This is what he wanted. This is what they got. It hasn't worked out for him. It's a shame. I don't watch WWE. You guys know I can't stand the WWE, but I'm not going to root against him. Right? I don't like to root against people. I don't mind rooting against the company. That's different. I don't mind rooting against Vince McMahon because he's the devil. But nonetheless, this is what he wanted. And if you think about it in the grand scheme of his life, he's going to be a much better person for having gone there instead of staying in Impact Wrestling because of those issues. So I think that coming to a head was good for Impact that he wasn't with us, and good for Mike that he was in WWE.
Yeah, if you look at his Twitter account as well, he's a very positive individual. It takes a lot of courage to talk about what he's talking about openly with his addiction. And if that can help other people, then the more power to him. I have a lot of respect for him in that regards. If he's cleaned himself up, that's only good for him and his marriage and his a new baby on the way. Or have they had their baby yet? I don't know. So
no.
he's making positive changes in his life, and I think that's a step in the right direction.
So we'll move on now to the X Division. Basically, not much to cover here. We got the return of Sanjay Dutt as in-ring and behind the scenes, working as an agent on creative team and all that stuff. We've had the big return of Petey Williams, which we already covered earlier in the show. Matt Sydal debuting in Impact. Well, not debuting. He was there a long time ago, but he's back. And Suicide, I don't know if you can count him as a new roster member since he's played by Caleb Conley, but we can kind of count him as a new character, I guess. And we had the departure of Rockstar Spud, and I feel like that's the biggest hit from the X Division was Rockstar Spud, purely based off the fact that that guy was just pure gold on the mic, and when it came to selling storylines, he was just overall the perfect underdog, and they really blowed it by letting by Spud leaving the company, and especially over a dumb reason like the visa
I'm
stuff.
going to disagree with you on that. When I think of X Division departures, I think of Low Key taking off, even though if you follow his career as expected, but to me he did more in 2017 than Rockstar Spud did, who kind of floundered in a feud with the artist formerly known as Hornswoggle. So Rockstar Spud, even though a talented guy, in the grand scheme of things, he hadn't been used properly. Therefore, his loss, although inconvenient, not the end of the world to me.
Oh, you mentioned low key. I just wish that he would stay low key. That guy does absolutely nothing for me. He's not a good team player either. It's like if you could just package up like the most terrible wrestler in history, that's the guy. He bores me to tears. I feel like he has no personality, and then besides that, he's a terrible company player. At least Robbie E was a good company player, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Low Key does what Low Key wants to do. So, and I know I get I get attacked on Asylum all the time, and deservedly so. I mean, I put myself out there on it. I just, low-key does nothing for me. I would say Hornswoggle was a bigger loss than low-key, to be honest with you. But Rockstar Spud in X Division, I never really saw him as an X Division guy. He didn't spend a whole lot of time there. Yeah, I know we had a title run, whatever, but it was hit or miss. He was really more used in a lackey and really more misused. He could have been the greatest manager of his generation had they given him the opportunity. Raven Effect says it all the time. FK9 says the same thing. And you know what, guys? They're right. Bottom line is, we got Jeff Jarrett returning, and we got the X Division got better. The minuses don't outweigh the pluses here, right? And let's face it, I think Low-Key came back this year anyway and left. So, he would be an addition and a subtraction. You might not even be able to count him in this category because he goes on both sides, right? But it's definitely in a better place than it was before.
Yeah, for sure. And now we'll move on to the last section here, where we'll be covering over basically the rest of the Impact roster. Should it be the main event roster, the heavyweights, and all that stuff? So we got the departures of people like Crazy Steve, Aiden O'Shea, Marche Rocket, and other people that weren't that big of a deal, Tyrus, and similar people that were just used as jobbers, weren't really big roles in Impact. But we also got bigger departures, such as Drew Galloway, Pope, not the TV channel, Pope, Pope, James Storm being another big one, and then Chris Adonis, if you want to consider him a big deal. He was in the main event scene, but he's not. He's a lackey of sorts still. So those were all big impacts. I feel like the bigger one is definitely Drew Galloway. He brought lots to the table when it came to Impact Wrestling, and he just I understand why he went back to WWE again. He built back up his resume so he could make it back into the WWE. So I don't blame the guy for leaving, but I feel like he was really, really a solid addition to Impact, and it sucks that he had to leave.
Well, he didn't have to leave. He wanted to leave, right? And if I had to pick between him and Storm, I'd probably lean towards Storm, because I think over the years Storm has been more of a team player, since we mentioned that term before. If Galloway's sole purpose was to come back to Impact Wrestling, or come into Impact Wrestling and rebuild himself and leave at the first opportunity when the E comes calling, then, sometimes that's good riddance. I'm not sure if that was the case for Storm. I think Storm was, some people believe, misused. I thought he was used correctly in most cases, except for the way he exited. But I always thought he was a good team player that was excellent in the mid-card and sometimes could be pushed at main event level. He'll be missed.
I think if we're talking about, who the biggest loss is, I think if that's going to show is Lashley before it's all said and done, right? I guess technically he didn't leave in 2017, but it's announced that he's probably finished up with the company. I think there is a sliver of hope that he may return, right? I think that's a guy that can have built the company around long term. I don't think EC3 is going to be as missed as people think. I think EC3 had been dialing it in for the last year or so. James Storm is going to be the one that I'm going to miss the most, because James Storm is a guy that should have been a multi-time world champion and given a longer title run. EC3 did everything that happened to himself. He was not a big star because he didn't make himself a big star. He was the guy that as soon as he stopped his push, he went on social media and he pushed WWE and NXT every chance that he got. And that's where he wants to be, and that's where he is now. But at the same point in time, you know what? I don't want him back. If he'd have gone out the right way, like, say, LVN or Lashley, welcome him back later. But the way that he went out, no thanks, I'll pass.
Yeah. And definitely with Lashley, I don't see him leaving just for the WWE. Yes, he has mentioned that he wants to fight Brock Lesnar, but he stated on multiple occasions, and based off of my interview with Lashley, he is a family man to his core. He does not want the WWE schedule. He does not want the touring nonstop, and he's mentioned that quite often. So maybe he will sign with WWE, a short-term contract or a part-time contract, so he does have his dream match with Brock Lesnar, but I don't see him staying there forever. And he stated that Impact has been a really great place for him, so I might see out of the departures, he's the most possible candidate to return later on down the road. So, two names that were recently announced to have debuted with Impact at the Orlando tapings were Brian Cage and Austin Aries. So those are the two big, huge names coming out of Orlando tapings. Personally, I'm super happy that both men are back. Both are super talented, and both can be used in the main event scene in a really, really great way.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to next week. Austin Aries was, rumored to possibly be in Ottawa. That never happened. But obviously some part of the new management likes Aries. Looking forward to seeing what he can do and what he can bring to the table. I've seen Cage a couple times early on his run with Impact. I think he had a tryout a few years ago. He looked impressive. He's looked impressive in Mexico. So if my understanding is correct, they're going to give him a monster push. Be interesting to see what Callis and D'Amore think of him down the road a year or two from now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think Brian Cage is a great look to him. I think he's a guy that can be built up to be a big star just based on look alone. Austin Aries, I think, is just something for the Impact fans, of recent past to maybe get behind. I don't think he's as important of an addition as Alberto El Patron or Johnny Impact, just because I think if they bring a whole demographic from Mexico, I think they bring Lucha Underground demographic, and I think if they also have larger world followings, then Austin Aries, a guy that really didn't excel when he left Impact and went into the WWE. That having been said, Austin Aries, greatest man alive. He had a heck of an Impact run the last time. One of the most decorated champions in color and company history. So absolutely a guy you want on your roster. No doubt about it.
And a guy who might benefit having gone elsewhere and come back, because I thought his run at the end of his second stint with Impact Wrestling was getting very stale, just like a lot of the other wrestlers that left at that time. So hopefully he comes back in with renewed interest and can help develop some of the younger talent there into meaningful stars.
But so I think we covered most of the roster there. Like you were saying, there's big roster changes that happened in 2017. Huge names appeared in Impact. Huge names are departing. But we can't just talk about the wrestlers. We have to go behind the scenes for a bit and talk about Anthem coming in. So Anthem Entertainment came in at the beginning of 2017 after the whole Dixie Carter, Billy Corgan fallout thing that happened. Anthem came in, scooped up Impact, and I feel like Anthem has done a half-decent job, well, more than half-decent job, keeping Impact afloat. And yes, they are taking drastic measures to keep Impact alive, but I see where they're coming from, and they are taking those drastic changes and still making positives out of them, even though we get a few roster changes and things that people might not like. I feel like overall, Anthem has done a fantastic job, and bringing in Scott and Don in to really put their wrestling expertise, because Ed's just a businessman, right? He doesn't have the wrestling expertise that Scott or Don has. Having those two as his right-hand mans running the show is definitely I feel like it's going to boost just the overall product as a whole, as they get the trends that are happening in wrestling more than a businessman like Ed does.
Yeah, I think with Anthem I think I mentioned earlier, I like they recognize mistakes and they correct them fairly quickly with the Jeff Jarrett thing in case. Now, I think their decision making may not be popular with the fans right now because of all the cutbacks and things like that. But if it pays dividends a year or two down the road and Callis and D'Amore's vision has come to fruition, then I think fans will look back on this time period and say it was worth it. If they continue to flounder in certain areas, fans will only forgive so many times, and I find Impact fans extremely forgiving. Okay, Impact has 9 lives when it comes to Impact fans of Impact. Now it's time. Now it's time to show us your vision and make it to fruition, because they are on a cost-cutting mode. They're down to almost a skeleton crew of what they used to be. They got to show us. They got to show us bang for our buck here.
It's always fun to listen to Impact Wrestling fans talk about management changes, because the next guy is always the next great guy. I don't know Don Callis, from Don Knotts. Scott D'Amore's been around for a little longer, but he hasn't been there a year either yet. So, in terms of me buying into what they're doing, I think I need to see more. I think they're making a lot of good decisions, and I think the difference with this regime is that you're going to find that Ed Nordholm and Anthem are going to give these guys a little bit longer of a leash than Dixie Carter did. Dixie Carter was like, who's going to get me that next pop? Not you, you're out. You're out, you're out, you're out, you're out, right? I mean, we went from management to management to management. Anthem came in, they did something really smart. They kept John Gaburk. Why? Because it was a backup plan. And guess what happened? Jeff Jarrett failed. He had to go into rehab, and that's disappointing, and it's sad, but it's a good thing, right? Because Jeff's healthy now. But they had John Gaburk to fall back on, right? And as soon as they realized that they had this, Scott could take over, right? They had confidence they're bringing Don Callis in, and he was the guy. Then they let John go, right? But they did it a while later. They had a fallback plan. They were able to go to plan B, which they needed to execute. And to me, that speaks volumes for where the company's going to go, because you have to give a vision an opportunity to actually play itself out and actually be realized. And I'm hoping they're going to get the opportunity. That having been said, these folks are brought in because they bring in contacts. Don Callis, New Japan. Right? Scott D'Amore, everybody, really. I mean, Scott D'Amore knows everybody around the world. So they've been over to Japan, they've met with New Japan, and they're looking to forge these partnerships. And I think they have a much better chance with Scott D'Amore and Don Callis doing it than they ever would have had with, John Gaburk doing it, right? Or Dutch Mantell or some of those other ones. So let's see how this all plays out. But as far as, let's face it, I mean, if you want to figure out what the future is going to look like, look at the past. And they just had regime after regime after regime that hasn't succeeded. These guys have to prove it to me before I'm going to buy into it.
And one thing I also really liked about Anthem and what Don and Scott coming in is that their creative team now is it's really smart how they're playing it out right now, is that they're making a wrestling show booked by the wrestlers by a creative team. By the creative team made of wrestlers. So they have Gail Kim giving advice. I'm pretty sure they have Abyss as well and Sanjay Dutt all giving advice as advisors on the creative team and as agents. And that's really smart, having wrestlers that know how it works more than just businessmen booking a show, doing the creative side of things. And it's just really, overall, really good.
And I think they have Jimmy Jacobs in there as well, which is a massive plus. But both D'Amore and Callis don't come in with that stench of negativity that Jarrett carried and some of the other regimes carried before. So at least they're coming in with a fresh slate, and hopefully they can do some positive things with it.
So yeah, I think we ran through most of all the changes. This was a huge year for Impact when it came to changes, but that's nothing new. Like Impact Dude was saying, it always changes. Hopefully, this is the last of changes. We can always hope. So this was a big year in retrospect, 2017. I think we're going to end this edition of Impact Asylum Radio off here. This is a really jam-packed, long one. So thank you guys for listening up to now. I want to thank James. Thank you for coming on the show with us.
Always a pleasure to help a Canadian brother.
No problem. Thanks. And I want to thank as well co-host Impact Dude. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for doing the show with me as well, as always.
Always a blast to do a podcast, Impact related. Love talking me some Impact, folks. Love it.
So yeah, and as always, my name's Fireguy. So thank you all for tuning in to this second edition of Impact Asylum Radio. We'll see you guys in about another month from now with another edition. Thank you once again for stopping by, and thank you for tuning in.
I want to get Fireguy's opinion on this. I didn't think EC3's reaction in Auto was that overwhelming compared to some of the other wrestlers there. What do you think?
Oh yeah, for sure. If you're talking about the crowd reaction, it wasn't all there. That's partly due to Impact just pushing him farther and farther down the card, putting him into the mid card, and they were slowly just burning him off the TV. So,
he didn't feel like a major star to me.
Yeah,
and I could see him leaving out the door, and like with what was just said, I don't think his loss is going to be that significant down the road.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be. It's because I feel like it's partially Impact's fault of pushing him down the card. So he wasn't as big of a main event player anymore. So they were slowly burning him off TV to write him off. So I feel like that did us a bit of a favor in a sense. So it's not like he's big time to the main event, made a heavyweight title chase, and then suddenly he's off TV magically. So in a sense, it's a kind of a blessing that he's been put into this mid card, less of a bigger role. And also another thing I wanted to add was that I feel people disagreed with me on ImpactAsylum, but I just didn't see the drive there in EC3 anymore compared to when he first started in Impact. That promo he cut before before that open challenge he did a few weeks ago, I found was absolutely atrocious. It was absolutely atrocious, and it wasn't the same kind of mic work that we're used to from EC3. So I feel like EC3's drive wasn't there anymore, and that he was just waiting out his contract. And it was confirmed by dirt sheets and stuff like that he wanted out quite a while ago, and that he's just I saw it in his in-ring, and I saw it on the mic that he just didn't want to be there. So I'm glad that I'm not glad that he's gone, but I mean, at least as long as he's happy going on to WWE, good luck to him and all his future things that he wants to do.